Hello dear friends, this is The Medium's Harvest, a book written by Emmanuel, the experimenter of the medium, Francisco Cândido Xavier, Chico Xavier, published in 1961 as a tribute to 100 years of the publishing of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec. We can't forget that the Medium's book by Kardec is for us the manual for mediums, for evokers, for everyone who would like to understand more about mediumship and understand about themselves, the practice of mediumship. In 32 chapters and 350 items, we get to know a lot, enough for us to guide this beautiful ability that we all have inside of us and may define a new life for the individual and for the collective. It's like intelligence. Intelligence, if not educated, doesn't go too far. Yes, I understand that education is not only in schools, but we need to refine. Experience helps. Instruction is fundamental. Mediums need to instruct themselves. It's not enough simply to experiment or experience. We need to instruct ourselves. It's like a physician, somebody who would like to help people overcome their diseases. Okay, you want to be a physician or a psychologist or a pharmacist, a nurse, okay, a dentist. You need to instruct yourself. Of course, there was a time on the earth in which people did surgical procedures, yes, without a degree, without going to a specific school and studying it, etc. There was a time people used to proceed in dental care without degrees, certifications, instructions. But now on the earth, we already have the formal education to give the primary instruction, but it shouldn't be limited to it. For mediumship, we're still baby stepping on the earth, but there will be a day in which people will be studying mediumship in the mainstream, not to ask them numbers that they should use and they should work to win the lottery. No, but they're going to be studying mediumship like they are studying formal schools. For the cognitive, we'll have schools of emotion, we'll have lots of spiritist centers around the world teaching people about the ultimate ability, mediumship. To be a medium, it pertains to all of us. And if you and I are already aware of it, we can no longer just sit, absorb it, and do nothing. We need to study and at the same time find means to form a group or be in a group, refining ourselves in the group to work our mediumship. But Vanessa, I'm not a medium. You may not be a certain type of medium, but there are lots of mediumship types. Okay? Mediumship comes to help. So much so that chapter 74 is titled They Know, and Emmanuel is going to tell us that mediumship is about reaching out. Many people want to help others in the world. Many people ask themselves, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help more people? Should I change my life? Sell everything and then go live in the wild helping people who have nothing? You can. But if you are where you are, sometimes the wealthiest places, you can be of greater help, even greater, because you're going to be helping those who decide the destiny of others. And I say decide, quote unquote, because only God does decide, but have a great impact. Helping the poor is important, but helping the wealthy is fundamental, because they are the ones that are playing a huge impact in the lives of everything else. And being a good medium, forming a mediumistic group that is even unknown to them, may be of support to the ins and outs of spiritual obsessions that happen in the lives of the wealthiest people in the world. Let's see the item in the medium's book through which Emmanuel got inspired and wrote chapter 74 of the Medium's Harvest. He relied upon item 279. It belongs to chapter 25 of the Medium's book, which is about evocations. Let's see what Kardec said, okay? He's talking about the rapport with the spirits. The rapport, how we should proceed. And he says the following. Only open, let's open. I know it's hard sometimes when we are over the internet because lives are busy, we have so many things going around. But let's see if we can feel what Kardec is telling us. He says, only through moral superiority may one exert ascendancy over less evolved spirits. I'm going to repeat. Only through moral superiority may one exert ascendancy over less evolved spirits. Perverse spirits recognize the superiority of morally upright men and women. Perverse spirits recognize the superiority of morally upright men and women. When facing people who try to oppose their fierce energy using only their own willpower, they will react against such persons with a kind of brute force and often prove to be the stronger one. A certain individual who thus sought to dominate a rebellious spirit through willpower received this response. Leave me alone with your braggart airs. You are no better than me. What would you say about one thief preaching morality to another? It may seem very surprising that when the name of God is invoked against such spirits, it hardly ever has any effect. St. Louis explains the reason for this in the following response. The name of God only has any influence over imperfect spirits when the one who invokes it can do so with the authority of his or her own virtues, coming from the mouth of someone who is morally no better than the spirit. It is just an ordinary word like any other. The same applies to sacred objects used to oppose them. The most terrible weapon is inoffensive in hands that are unable or incapable of using it. So Kardec is talking about the rapport with the spirits, especially in these obsessions. Moral superiority, moral authority is the only one. And it's so interesting because we all have this divine seed inside of us. We want to help others. And when we see somebody suffering, sometimes we feel so empowered to help that oftentimes we may even smash the person without noticing. Let's see first what Emmanuel reinforces and highlights for us, what he adds and then we're going to break down these teachings for ourselves, shall we? Okay, so Emmanuel, based on that item 279 of the Medium's book, chapter 25, he wrote, chapter 74, They Know, the title, public meeting on October 10th, 1960. When in front of the suffering companion, determine the true moral superiority by imagining yourself in their place, so that your word may serve as refreshment and as a lesson. Except for the individuals who deliberately are enmeshed in ignorance and bestialized in crime, claiming the compassion of divine providence, no one imprison themselves in traps of error, acting on their own will. Here, someone embraced delinquency, admitting that affection is caprice. There are those who are scorned in the public square for having blindly believed the ones who mocked their trust. Before those who struggle and weep in the consequences of their own faults, whether incarnate or discarnate, arm yourself with humility and understanding if you aspire to help. Above all, convince yourself that the one in need is the first to know themselves. The patient knows what point of the body the illness is installed, and they do not expect accusations because they lose control in times of crisis. They instead ask for aid and medication. The mutilated know the part that is missing their physical body, and they do not expect accusations because they exhibit an imperfect form. They ask for help and resource instead. The hungry know that they have a tortured stomach, and they do not expect accusations because they are in uncontrolled affliction. Instead, they ask for a plate with bread. The thirsty know that they carry the torment of dryness, and they do not expect accusations due to the grimaces that they show, that they display. Instead, they ask for a glass of cold water. So, also those who have fallen in guilt, they know themselves. They know that they are in the labyrinth of shadow in which they wait no accusation greater than those of their own conscience, seeing themselves demented and blind, humiliated and unhappy. Therefore, facing the brother and sister who has fallen in remorse and rebellion, sourness or despair, do not press on their wounds. If you really want to help them, to readjust them, let your love surface. Let your love appear to vibrate the chords of their hearts. We talk about positions of authority. Kardec is using that expression. Moral authority. Let's talk about this word, authority. It's when we temporarily have a position that can offer something to somebody who needs, they depend on us, like parenting, for example. It's a position of authority. The question is, usually people, they struggle in their positions of power. They don't know and they abuse it. It's one of the problems in our humanity on the earth nowadays. Whenever we have a little bit more influence, a little bit more power, we start abusing it, feeling we have more rights than we actually do, and feeling that we can even demand the transformation of others. On chapter 8 of the book Good News by Brother X through Chico Xavier, we have already studied it before here. Since the book is in the ways of being published, if you haven't read the book and you want to read and you don't speak Portuguese and you speak English, you can go to the YouTube channel of Kardec Radio or the video section of the Facebook page of Kardec Radio and watch chapter 8, which is about, it's titled Take Heart, Bom Ânimo. It's about Bartholomew. Bartholomew was a disciple of Jesus, and he was distraught by the social context he was living in, at his house, at work, everywhere. And he came to Jesus talking about the adversities in his life. And there is a moment in which he talks about his brothers and his father. And he asks whether or not he should somewhat demand that they change themselves. And then Jesus says, but truth does not demand. Truth transforms us. And this is exactly the model for us. As a figure of authority for us in this world, Jesus as the governor, he does not play games with his power. He doesn't abuse. He doesn't smash us, undermine us because we're evolving. Like parents. There are parents who, in their ignorance, seeing the developing child, they create problems for their future self-esteem by laughing at their natural mistakes in development, by bullying them, like children speak, they pronounce words wrongly. Not wrongly, they're not maturing yet. And parents bully them, repeating sarcastically the wrongly pronounced word, as if it's funny. I mean, it can be cutely funny, but not to the point that we're going to make fun of them. And there are parents who think it's fun. It's not fun. Not fun at all. As a psychologist, I tell you, you have no idea about the impact in the long run of that person's life. They are stumbling. They may delay their development in certain areas, and I see parents who are like, come on, everybody's already walking, and you're already 2 years old, and you're not walking. Who are you? You're always, your brother walked right away. Your sister walked right away. So we're abusing our position of authority, which is temporary as parents, and creating problems for their life. Majority of parents on the earth abuse their position of authority. They abuse. And usually on the earth, people abuse it. And when we come to a mediumistic meeting, when we are proposing to reach out to the spirits, to the discarnate spirits who are coming, they are suffering, they are coming with a lot of baggage in their emotions. There are many counselors. even mediums, but mostly counselors and supporting mediums who are very judgmental and may even play games abusing their authority. And that's when Allan Kardec, in item 279, he talks about when in his own experience he saw somebody, a counselor of a spirit at the time, being, kind of embarrassed in a mediumistic meeting. Because in the conversation with this discarnate spirit, that counselor forgot about his own imperfections. And the discarnate spirits know us. So we are not in a mediumistic meeting as if we were in a courtroom. Tell me, I am the judge now. Tell me what you've done, bad boy. Now you repent. Are you crazy? And there are cases, crazy cases, that I've heard about of people dealing with the spirits as if they were in a courtroom, pretending they are imprisoning the spirits, literally, sentencing the spirits, demanding that the spirits do this, like techniques we've seen of exorcism, which do not, as Kardec says, the use of a cross, the use of objects, the use of shouting, the tone of voice, it's not going to change. It's about a vibrational approach. So we need to remind the mediumistic teams that more than words, we are embracing the entities vibratorily. As much as when we are working with an incarnate friend who comes for fraternal counseling in our center, and we're dealing with them heart to heart. More than being worried about what am I going to say? Don't say anything. Listen. I don't need to know because God knows. And I will know what I need to share. And sometimes it's that position of acceptance of the person's reality that they need the most to feel accepted. When Louise Hay talked about the fact that majority of people, she said, the greatest struggle in humanity is not accepting themselves. Do you think that the discarnates already accept themselves? Emmanuel tells us here, there is a great deal of remorse, of rebelliousness, sourness, despair. When we tell them, who hasn't incurred in a mistake? We're not here to judge you, but to let you know that here you have an opportunity to embrace yourself in a new life. Crimes we may not have done in this life, not the ones that justice already takes care of. We do other things that only in 1,000 years we'll look at as crimes. But we will tell them, God is sustaining your life. Because we think God sustains only the incarnate life. No, it's the discarnate life. We don't ask to exist or to maintain our existence. God just does it. And God is allowing you to keep on going. What do you think it is all for? Breathe in and out, my friend, and feel the joy of existing. Breathe in and out. Give yourself some time. You have a spiritual body, and you have life. Give yourself an opportunity to begin anew. You're tired of the sorrows in your life, of the wounds, of the hatred, of the constant battling, struggling, of your guilt. Of course, for each dialogue, it's going to be customized. But first, it's the vibration. But I cannot give that opportunity to any incarnate or discarnate if I don't give it to myself. So, therapeutic question for you and I. Do you accept yourself? Because your conscience, says Emmanuel, like anybody's conscience, plays a role of authority in your life. Do you love yourself? In spite of the fact that you are not yet ahead? That's mindful loving. Mentor Joseph is saying, mindful loving. Loving ourselves in the present, no longer postponing it. The day this happens, I will love me. The day, no. Today, I love myself with the debt that I have. And I speak about spiritual debt. And I kindly say that not to create guilt, but to say we have infractions in our lives. But we need to have an easier time dealing with facing the infractions. And that takes maturity. Maturity. I know a book of an Essene scholar, and she says that she has observed in her counseling practice that majority of the problems she sees are due to spiritual immaturity. And she's right. Kardec shared that with us. We still need to mature in our discernment, to suffer less, to give a new meaning to things in life, because pain is perception. Pain is perception. And perception is interpretation of the sensation, is the interpretation of the stimulus that comes to me in my life. So the stimulus comes and I need to interpret it differently. Right? It's not the end of the world. So, Emmanuel tells us, talking about suffering, when in front of the suffering companion, observe your true moral superiority by feeling yourself in the shoes of the other person. Here comes an obsessor who is enraged. I'm never going to forgive, they say in a mediumistic meeting. I am going to make them pay, and I'm not going to quit. Ta-da-dee, ta-da-da, ta-dee-dee, ta-da-da. And you feel the vibration, it's heavy. But before I say anything, I need to feel. Here is, and I say this kindly, a lion who is wounded pretty bad. And now he is enraged. Why? Law of preservation. We have a defense system inside of our body. When we see the cells of the immune system taking care of those strange things that end up, the viruses and bacteria that do not belong, we thank God they were there preserving our physical life. When a discarnate or an incarnate is enraged because somebody was at fault and hurt them and injured them, we're not saying they're right, but we're saying, I understand you. I'm not here to give you a moral value of it. You're right or wrong. but I feel you. If it had happened to me, how would I feel? Think about this. How would you feel? It's real. Feeling, understanding, says Emmanuel, is going to give them a word of refreshment and a kind lesson. So I say, my friend, I understand you. It must have had hurt, and you feel it. You're not playing games. So stop. It's okay to use silence in a mediumistic meeting as a tool, not too long of a silence, but in the conversation, in the dialogue, we don't need to rush and reply to the spirit. Like in psychotherapy, you listen, pause, and then you may add something, ponder together. But we're not going to smash the spirit, indoctrinate the spirit. But think of God. You're a child of God. You have to forgive. Remember Jesus. Jesus said we should forgive. And then we start like putting fire where there's more fire. So Emmanuel says, except to those who are truly ignorant and are primitive spirits that are very primitive, except to them, nobody imprisons themselves in making mistakes because they like to make a mistake. Oh, let me make a mistake right now. And I go there and kill somebody. Just because. Well, that exists. But Emmanuel is not talking about those cases. He's talking about the majority of cases, as Jesus said to Peter once. Peter, people most often incurring mistakes because of their weakness, their fragility. It's not really evil that drives them to that. Like children, they spill water. And if parents like, oh my God, you're spilling water everywhere. It's a child, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. They didn't do it out there well. They're not thinking. Like Virginia one day, she was 3 years old, and last year, and when I had like a stamper with our address, and then I left it on the table. Forgot she's around. And we have a clear couch, like light beige. And I stopped by at the kitchen to pick up something. When I came back, it's like less than 5 minutes. The couch was stamped from one arm to the other. I was frozen. I was like, oh my God. And the minute I saw it, I was like, I cannot. I was telling myself, I cannot scream or shout or do anything because she doesn't know what she's doing. And I just said, Virginia, quickly, let's find a way to clean it up before Dad comes home. Not because he was going to do anything, but because it would be a second adult figuring out what to do. And I said, I better be the only one figuring it out and not create more, load in Carlos' life. So I was like, quickly, and YouTubing, how do you clear it up? Thanks to internet, in less than half an hour, we had it all clean, the stamper disappeared for the rest of our lives. No longer Virginia sees it. But you know, is it going to be the last time? No. All parents have experienced this and worse. And are you going to spank the child? Well, it happened to us when we were kids, right? We were, spanked, beaten up because we did stuff that was wrong, and we were spanked. Like, what have I done? I don't even know. But nowadays, we know better. We're not going to do it. So how can, the higher we go, the more we're going to understand people's mistakes. Right, Weber. So we need to understand chapter 10 of the book, Soul in Life. We often don't know what we're doing. Your guardian angel, your protecting spirit, my protecting spirit, the superior spirits, they have that attitude of moral superiority. Some people, they are afraid of their superior spirits, the protecting spirits, the guardian angels, because they think, they project onto them what they feel. They think, oh, I'm not even gonna pray because I'm so guilty. I'm so angry right now. I don't even want to look at the face of Jesus or my guardian angel. But you know, the beauty of it all is that when we make a huge mistake, that's when they have the greatest compassion towards us. Yes, they do. And they understand us. Understanding does not mean accept and agree. Like, oh yeah, I agree. Right? Exactly. Yes, Livia Moraes saying they demand a lot of discipline. You're right. You're right. A lot of discipline. But discipline, you know, a teacher taught me recently that the root of the word discipline is the disciple who follows the truth. The disciple who follows the truth. So discipline becomes beautiful because they want us to follow the truth. Right, Livia? Right, Elsa. We love Jesus. Good seeing you here. So discipline is to encourage us to follow the truth, to follow the order of the universe. And now, who doesn't want to be disciplined? So he says here to us, when dealing with people, we need humility and understanding if we aspire to help. Humility is the opposite of abusing our authority. We can't. In a mediumistic meeting, we have some form of authority, but we are not actually above the spirits. So we cannot demand. We cannot smash them. We need to embrace and be humble. You know why? Because it could be us. It still can be us. And it may have been us. And maybe we are here today because somebody rescued us in a meeting like that in the past. According to friends who know Chico Xavier very closely, I want to tell you two accounts of Chico Xavier to tell us more about this. There was a time in which Chico Xavier spent 2 years in a spiritist center without extra help, and Emmanuel told him to go, open with a prayer, read a message, explain, close with a prayer, in spite of the fact that there was no incarnate. But there were many discarnates who were being educated through Chico Xavier. We've got to know that many of the spirits who were there, discarnated, listening to his lectures, reincarnated, and are spiritist workers and practitioners. Can you imagine how beautiful it is? It's a world, a cooperation in two worlds. And the second case about humility is this. There was a time in which a spirit of very dark spirit, very, like, you know, when we feel like it's very evil, very ignorant, showed up in front of Chico Xavier. And he wanted to challenge Chico. Immediately, Chico Xavier thought of Emmanuel and connected and said, Emmanuel, what do I do? Thought you thought. Emmanuel says, stay humble. Do not confront the spirit. Stay humble. And the spirit would say, Chico Xavier, who do you think you are? And Chico would reply, I'm just, you know, child of God like everybody else. But you do this, that, and the other. Who do you think you are? And Chico kept replying in a very humble, truthfully humble way, to the point that that spirit gave up by saying, oh, you Chico, I can't stand you any longer. Goodbye. And he left because he tried. He tried to battle with Chico, and Chico would not confront. Chico would not confront. Chico would not confront. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. Humility works. How do you practice humility? I think it's hard, but it's possible. Benjamin Franklin, knowing he was not humble, but he said, I need to practice it. And he wrote the 13 virtues, one of them being humility, a virtue for him to achieve. And he said, imitate Jesus and Socrates, the philosopher. This is Benjamin Franklin, 20 years of age when incarnated, coaching himself to be humble. So imitating Jesus is one way. The teacher in the Zumba class saying, go to the right, look at the teacher, and go to the right. The teacher says, go to the left, now look at the teacher, go to the left, right? So humility, says Emmanuel in the book Thought and Life. He says, to cultivate humility is to advance without attachment, to project the best of oneself towards others, to forget all evil, and to joyfully begin once more the task of love. This is humility. Yeah? Humility is to advance without attachment. Attachment to the ego. Oh, but I'm going to say this because in this life, I've never made a mistake. Well, that's what we think. And he says, to give the best of us, benevolence, to forget of evil, which is forgiveness, and to joyfully begin once again the task of love. So this is the tool for us to help somebody. Many people want to help people. They know where it hurts. We feel for them. We feel with them. Empathy. And once we are empathetic, let love surface to vibrate the chords of the hearts. To vibrate the chords of the hearts of the other spirits, incarnated or discarnated, we need to emanate love. To emanate love. You are a child of love, and I trust in your nature. You trust in my loving nature, and thus we bond. And I can tell you, let's say the spirit who is here, saying, look, you deserve better than this. I'm asking you, we are asking you, to stop persecuting that person, not because that person deserves better, but because you deserve better. You're imprisoned while persecuting, but you deserve to be free. You deserve to be free. So the dialogue that happens needs humility, understanding, and love. How do we practice it? By looking at yourself in the mirror and accepting yourself. I love and approve of myself in ways that are pleasing to God. And I forgive myself for the mistakes that I do every day. And I accept my nature to begin anew. That's humility. Never give up. When we give up, we're stumbling in pride. Let pride go. Let it go, let it go. And absorb the new. And the new is the task of love ahead of us. Right, friends? Tomorrow when we come back, we'll be studying another chapter. A chapter that talks about explanations. What is it? Let us explain. 75. And Spiritism is the Christ consciousness that comes back again. And he says to us, remember that Spiritism, in Spiritism, it is necessary to study and to learn, to understand, and to explain. What is it that we need to explain? He asks us, let us explain. What is it? We need to know. But we'll come back tomorrow for more. For now, big hug to all of you. And hopefully tomorrow we'll be here for chapter 75 with Emmanuel in the Medium's Harvest. Let's not forget the homework, right? The homework for us, asking ourselves, do I really accept myself today? Or am I postponing it, conditioning it due to other things? Let's not postpone it. Embracing ourselves, we'll be able to vibrate this acceptance, and by doing so, we'll be able to help people much more. Thank you, friends, and a big hug.